Let's get started, inshallah. Bismillah, alhamdulillah, wassalatu wassalamu ala rasulillah, wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa la. Ya Rab, subhanaka la ilma lana illa ma 'allamtana innaka anta alimul hakim. Rabbi shrah li sadri wa yassir li amri wahlul 'uqdatam min lisani yafqahu qawli ba'd. Today we are talking about communication. Now, the first thing I want to say is that communication is a very broad topic. And when we think about communication, what often comes to mind is how do we speak and how do we listen better? Now, I want to be very specific here. Communication is a very human skill. How we speak, how we listen. We are doing that in every part of our life, in our relationships, at home, at work. This is the very mechanism by which we interact with human beings, right? But for our purpose today is to talk about communication specifically in an organizational setting, in a team setting. How do members of a same team talk to each other? And how do leaders speak with the team members? Now, the first thing I want to tell you before I dive into talking about team communication is that oftentimes my skill and your skill when it comes to communication, you have to know that this is something you can improve. Most of us, the way we listen, what we speak, it comes from either how we grew up, people that we interacted with, people that we looked up to. Um, Sometimes is because of genetics and other reasons. We have certain style and approach and method of listening and speaking. The very basic ABC of communication because of a lot of different circumstances. But communication is a thing that you can actually improve. It's a skill that you can actually improve. You know, there are so many other skills in our life that we spend hours and days and years learning. Yet when it comes to communication, we just assume we can watch few videos on TikTok or read one or two articles, and then by the very virtue of the fact that I do this thing, talking and listening every day, that I'm just going to improve or get better, or I'm stuck with the way I am, right? And people often say, "Oh, this is how I speak. This is how I listen." Just me. I want you to know that listening and speaking is something you can definitely improve. You can change. It's a skill. Secondly, when we're talking about communication in a team setting, you have to first understand team as a whole, a team as the dynamic as a whole. We are talking specifically about how do good teams, high performing teams, how do they communicate, right? And researchers have done a ton of work in looking at what makes a great team and what makes a not so great team, right? And there are a lot of theories, a lot of data, and a lot of research on this. They from looking at a team in corporate setting, team as a family, a basketball team, a military team. Uh, Researchers have looked at what are the characteristics of really high performing team and what are the characteristics of teams that are not functional. And there are many theories, there are many approaches. Today, for our purposes, inshallah, I am going with one very popular theory that's known as the high performing team framework. It is taken from a very well known author who talked about high performing team, and the op and also the dysfunctions of a team. There are essentially researchers in this frame came up with 5 different characteristics. If you look at any team, the team that you're involved in, whether it be in your masjid whether it be in your relief organization, whether it be in your Islamic school, whatever team that you're involved in, or even teams of teams, right? Maybe you lead an entire organization and there are teams of teams, or maybe you're just a member of a particular team. If I go through these 5 characteristics, you'll very quickly know whether or not your team is healthy or your team is not healthy. Now, before I do that, I want to start with all of us. If you're here listening and joining us for this podcast, I just don't want us to learn this, and think about, oh, someone else can do better, or this team is just not good, or this organization I'm part of, I could tell you all the ways that I can complain to you about this organization. I want all of us to take ownership of the fact that each and every one of us, whether you are part of a team or you're leading a team, you are responsible for stewarding, being the stewards of that team being high performing, of that team being functional, of that team being healthy. So I want to give you a very quick, before I get to high performing team, I want to give you a very quick self evaluation. If you are listening to this, you're driving, or you're making dinner, or you're sitting and listening, I want you to just take a few minutes, just take a minute, and I want you to give yourself a rating. Um, and there's two part to this assessment. First part is across any team that you're part of, and the second part is if you are leading a team. Okay. And give yourself a rating 1 through 5. 1 meaning, this does not describe me. That's not really me. 5 means yes, that's really me. So in the first bucket, it says, I when I'm part of a team, I help to increase clarity in the team. I'm someone that helps increase clarity. I'm not the source of confusion in a team. 1 meaning, yeah, no, that's not really me. I'm actually the culprit. Or 5 means, no, like, alhamdulillah, I really try my best to bring clarity, even if I'm not the lead of the team. When I'm involved in a team, I always ask questions, and I am trying to make sure people roles are clear. My responsibility is clear. I ask for a follow up. I really help create clarity in the team. Is that you? 1 through 5. Okay. The next one, and again, I'll read them out loud just in case there are folks here who are just listening in and not on actually seeing the video. So the second one is, I raise issues directly. 1 through 5. That I'm someone, when I'm in a team, I raise issues directly. I don't do too many backdoor politicking. I try to raise issues directly with the right hikmah and wisdom, not abruptly. Number 3, I help align people. Meaning, I help to get people together. I'm not there to create size. I don't. I'm not the source of creating a fitna in a team, right? Alhamdulillah. That's 5. Or if you feel like, no, I feel like sometimes I am very polarizing, so that you could give yourself a 1. I follow through consistently, meaning whatever I'm assigned, I follow through. I don't avoid the meeting all of a sudden. I don't pass my deadlines. I don't show up late when I made a commitment. I follow through consistently. 1 meaning, no, that's not really me. 5 meaning, yes, I am. I do that. And then last one, I strengthen trust in the room. uh, you're someone that help facilitate trust. You don't bring and cause suspicion. You find a way to build more brotherhood and sisterhood in the team that you're involved in, even though you're not the lead. 1 meaning, yeah, no, I don't really do that. I want to, but I don't. Or maybe you're actually the opposite. Or 5, that, yes, I try my best to do that. Okay, 1 through 5. When you give yourself that score, the highest score you can have is obviously 25, and the lowest score you could have is a 5. Okay, so in the chat, I would love to see if you welcome you all be honest and courageous, inshallah. What score did you give yourself? 5 through 25. You could put it in the chat, inshallah. Hopefully you did them. Inshallah. There'll be no judgment. We're all learning here. This is a educational setting. Inshallah. It's in the chat. You could put in 5 through 25. How did you score your rate yourself? We're just doing the first one, which is across any team. I didn't get to the second part. Okay, mashallah. So we have a lot of 20s and 22s. Mashallah. Mashallah. Amazing. Okay. Um, great. So mashallah, that's a very interesting part. Usually people who attend uh these webinars on a particular topic is probably a topic either that's causing them a lot of pain or is because they're actually someone who cares about this topic and trying their best and they want to keep growing. I normally have seen this. So clearly you care about communication and you know the impact of communication in your team. Okay, Bismillah. So we're gonna go right into it. Some things here, mashallah, I think a lot of you here are experienced organizers and leaders in your organizations. So some things might be a review, which is okay, and something, inshallah, might be a little bit new to you. And so I want to get right into it. I'm gonna for now leave the second part, which is when I'm leading a team. You can inshallah, if you're seeing the screen, you can also take that and score yourself. But I will just leave that for now, inshallah. Okay, we go right into a bit about a high performing team, and then inshallah, we're gonna zone in on the communication part of this high performing team. I didn't want to go right in talking about communication and the skills of communication. We could be here for next whole week. I could do a training for an entire week on communication, different aspects and nuances, different subset of skills. But I'm going to just zone in on two things today. One is the very foundational skill that you must have, which is active listening, and the second is navigating conflicts. I'm going to just focus on those two particular skills within communication. Communication is huge. There are many chapters, but I want to cover these two, and these two really fit into the bottom two layers of a high performing team, which is the trust and productive conflict. Okay, let me spend a few minutes first talking about high performing team. I think it's important for you to put the skill of communication in the perspective of a team. Okay, so any healthy team, any high performing team, they have these five characteristics. Number one, in that team, you will find that there's a lot of trust. People trust each other. In that team, people have productive conflicts. A good team is not a team where there is no arguments and fights. Just like a healthy marriage. Anyone who's married here would know, if even if you have the best relationship with your husband or your wife, you have days that you have fights. And so any good team have conflicts. And actually, the most high performing team have very good conflicts, right? So they have conflicts that are healthy. Commitment. A team that's very high performing, in that team, you'll find that people make and keep commitments. Okay, they are committed in that way, and in that team, you will find that there's mutual accountability. What that means is, in a high performing team, in a good team, and maybe that's your team that you're currently leading, or a team that you're part of, people hold each other accountable. It's not just the leader checking in on the volunteers or the staff and holding them accountable. It's actually individual staff hold each other accountable. Individual volunteers hold each other accountable. This is culture of valuing the mission of the team, and so you hold each other accountable. That's the beautiful part. If you as a leader can create a mechanism and create a culture where people are holding each other accountable and you just like step back and you're just able to let it run, that's the most beautiful thing you can do. Create this this culture of people doing self accountability and mutual accountability. So I'll talk a little about that, inshallah. And lastly, a healthy team, a productive team, a high performing team is a team that where people are very much focused on the result, meaning focus on the vision and the mission. They're less focused on their position, their role, their ego, and whether or not they got awarded or they were recognized. They're more focused on the mission, that the mission move forward. And they're more focused on that. How do you, as a leader, or if you are just a member of a team, how do you steward this? There are many strategies and techniques. I am just going to focus on the communication layer, which runs across the all of these five elements. But communication is not the only layer, by the way. Just want to be very clear here. Even though our topic today is communication, in order to have a high performing team, it's not just communication. It's also about the structure of the team, the governance. It's also about whether or not you have the right mission and vision. It's also about whether or not you have the right strategic priority, whether or not there are many other factors, whether or not you have the right tools, you have the right process, right? You have a clunky process that might be what's causing a holdup in your organization. A lot of things you do are not efficient. A lot of things you do there are too many layers. So those are all big elements. I'm just talking about the communication layer because our topic of discussion today is communication. But I'm spending a lot of time talking about team because I feel is important not to just talk about communication, but talk about communication in the perspective of a team. Okay, as I mentioned, if your team, there are always the things that are very good and things that are unhealthy. So in a team, if you look at that layer, either your team has a lot of vulnerability, right? So a healthy team on that, how people have trust. The way trust is built in a team is by people being vulnerable to each other, willing to make mistake, willing to share mistake, and that allows you to have healthy trust. And you see that same kind of a contrast between constructive conflict or artificial harmony, between ambiguity or clear and focused desire to win, between high standards or low standards, right? Between humility and service and status and ego. And you see that. Any questions at this point? I want to keep going, and inshallah, I want to keep providing you, inshallah, some practical details. But any questions, inshallah, put them in the chat. And as I talk about the high performing team, and these five elements of a high performing team, I'm going to talk about them from a level of communication only, right? Inshallah. So the first layer, let's go a little bit, let's unpack that a little bit. When it comes to developing trust, in a team, it's about a team that regularly checks in on his teammates as people, not just role. And by the way, this is actually quite critical. If you think about it, various types of generation have different needs, right? Baby boomers want to be recognized. Generation X wants balance. Millennials want progress. Gen Zs want friendship and relationship. Studies have shown that especially Gen Zs, which are going to make up majority of your volunteers and majority of your staff, more and more, as they slowly become 50% plus of the workforce. The way they define a good manager is a manager who cares about me, which is very amazing. That a Gen Z defines, which is going to be a lot of your staff volunteers more and more. They define whether or not you are a good leader, but whether or not you care about them beyond the work. So, he or she is, if just finished college, is looking to get married, or is right now, dealing with becoming a young adult. Are you able to care about them, ask about those things? What is top of mind for them? Are you facilitating that in some way through your network, through the wisdom that you have because you lived through what they have lived through? And even if you are also yourself a Gen Z and a leader, right? How do you check in with your team and your teammates? So if you're not the leads, Even as a teammate, how do you check in? And this is where communication becomes very critical. And it's not just about listening and speaking, it's about really listening, right? And so you creating a space where even if you are just team member, how do you make it a regular habit to just check in? Hey, how is it going? And you as a leader, making if you especially if you lead a large team, how do you find that one-on-one time with each of your team members, your volunteers, your staff? If anything, spend more time finding the one-on-one time with your people more than any other communication method. You have to check in. At the same time, you want to be professional and respectful. One of the challenges that we have in the sometime in our Muslim community, in our Muslim organization institutions, that sometimes there are a lot of dual relationships, right? Because someone we know is someone's relative, and it's someone's friend, and we have a connection beyond the social circle. We have to be very careful about nepotism, favoritism. These things creep up, right? And so when I say you want to become check in with them as a person, it doesn't mean violating the professional line, right? It's about asking them what they're comfortable with discussing with you as a manager, as a team leader. You don't have to get into their business if they don't want you to, right? And you have to earn that trust. um and then admitting when you're overwhelmed and need help. This is part of the culture you have to make, right? Even if you're not the leader, and if especially if you're the leader, a team has to see that you are honest. That it is part of your communication is that you are transparent. That you say when you're overwhelmed. You seek out help. You point out what's the elephant in the room, right? And that kind of courage to speak honestly, that allows the trust to be built in the team, and that is a foundation for a high performing team. Because that's why it becomes it's critical. Because when there's a high stakes situation, people feel comfortable to reach out to talk, because now you have that relationship, right? Several years ago, in Rhode Island hospitals, there were a lot of issues. A surgeon would leave a equipment on in the person's body, and so them, or they would be operating on the wrong side of the wrong kidney, right? And this was like several years ago. And what they found is that there was this culture of where the nurses would not speak when the head surgeon was doing whatever he or she was doing. And the head surgeon, who was the team lead in the surgery, didn't allow for that environment where people feel comfortable to share, right? And you as a leader got to be very careful about that, because if you create a culture whereas you say, it's all about ta'a, sami'na wa ta'na, right? They should hear and listen and obey. Subhanallah, even the Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam, took plenty of opinions, right? He created a team, let's just say a team of companions, where Salman al Farisi. Can you imagine? Salman al Farisi is a someone who is not an Arab, right? He's Persian. He is not like the majority group. He is one of the few non-Arabs in the group, and he's able to give a strategy around how the Muslims, when a time came, how would the Muslim defend, and the enemies, and the Confederate is approaching the city of the Prophet ﷺ. And he gives the idea that, in Persia we used to dig trenches, and he felt, to me, what's fascinating is that this non-Arab person, being a minority in the team of Rasulullah, right, in the team of the Sahaba, he felt comfortable sharing an opinion that was very new, right? And that was the doing of Rasulullah. He created this culture where people were willing to share, and that's how you build a community, right? And that's how you build a team. And so in your team, this is something you think about as a leader. In your team, do people feel comfortable? And if you're not a team lead, you're just a team member, and you see someone sharing something, and this person gets shut down because there are people who talk too much, right? A part of being a team member who also is responsible for high performance of your team is that you say, hey, listen, no, I actually want to hear brother Muhammad. He was trying to speak. Can we all listen in? I would like to hear him. Even though you're not a team lead, you're stopping the team to make sure that someone else gets a voice. And so being in the lookout, that we allowing our team where we're communicating, there's trust, and the trust is also built by spending time, you know as you all know, the great NBA coach, Greg Popovich, of San Antonio Spurs. He used to they used to say that he would spend more time with his team outside the court as much as inside the court. Can you believe that a basketball team was spending as much time outside the court? Greg Popovich, it was said that he would just put on a documentary, right? Get all the players together. This is like the highlight days of San Antonio Spurs. Of course, as of late, they lost to New York Knicks, and I'm a New Yorker, so very happy about that. But in the days of Greg Popovich, he would put on a documentary. Can you imagine? Like, this is a basketball team, and he puts on a documentary, and he has a conversation about the civil rights, and a topic that has nothing to do with basketball. And he would just have the players talk about that topic and engage and have conversation, right? That is part of building that trust within your team. It's about listening. It's about asking thought-provoking questions to get the teams to talk, to open up, to share, and that's something you have to orchestrate. It is not going to happen by itself. People, especially if you're a team lead or you're part of a team, and you say, "Let's just get stuff done." People are very busy. We have a lot going on, and we don't have time for this. Okay, can we just get to the meeting agenda? Can we just get to you'd be surprised if you're not building your team, and through those personal communication, the group communication, you're actually going to end up see there's conflict. People are going to drop the ball on things. There will be no high performance. So you have to actually intentionally spend time building this culture, right? And so when you're running a team, when you're running a meeting, are you doing enough ta'aruf, right? And enough learning about each other, building relationship with each other, and that is very, very critical. And it doesn't mean just once in a while going out for dinner, right? That's great, but it's really about building small connections, right? And so that trust is built not by just, we're going to have a big meeting and everyone, okay, we're going to go around, we're going to have an icebreaker question. Icebreaker questions is, a team building of the 90s. Okay, we don't do that anymore. We should do that, but that is not the greatest way to build a team, right? A team is built through you setting up the team in the right place, right? And so you have to make sure you have to orchestrate the team, right? The which area that we're not even talking about, right? How to actually have the right team members in your team. You have to know that, do we have the right people who are very critical and very always questioning things, and we have some people who are a little bit idealistic. You want to make sure your team is balanced out that way, right? If everyone who's very critical and thinking, you will not make any progress, right? Or if a team lacks certain skills, right? Those elements I'm not even talking about. I'm just talking about the communication. I'm assuming, inshallah, your team has those good elements, that you have balanced out the critical people with the enthusiastic people, that your team has the right amount of the diversity of thoughts, diversity of ethnicities, diversity of different life experiences, of different ages. I'm assuming you have that already. Once you do have that, 'cause those are critical, you have to set up the team correctly. Once you have that, or you have to move around people to have the right teams, then it's important to kind of force and orchestrate those relationships, and really micro relationships. The most success you can have is when people in your team are in their own time. Two, three people from your team of 100, they meet up on their own and they talk about the vision, right? That's a success. Now you create this micro relationship. It's not just about having all 50 people, all hands meeting, and then everyone going around. That doesn't build a relationship. It's about connecting two, three people together. You look at Rasulullah in his way he set up that brotherhood and sisterhood in Medina, the muakhat, the between a Ansar and a Muhajir. That's part of the Rasul building a smaller relationship. And so be on the lookout. How do you build a small relationship? Maybe this, I want to connect this person from my team with this person from my team. I want to make sure they connect and they get to learn. They get a buddy, they get an anchor. That's the way you orchestrate. That's the way you orchestrate this trust in your team. Then it's about having positive conflict. Um, as I get to positive conflict, um, this is a very foundational skills that you have to master in order for you to facilitate that trust, right? Active listening. I could probably talk to you and do an entire seminar for a whole weekend on just this 5 elements of active listening. We only have a few minutes, so I want to refresh for you what active listening is, right? It's an intentional approach to listening. This is not the way we normally listen. Okay, there's something that you have to actually teach yourself. Maybe if you had gotten a good mentor, you grew up with parents who were good listeners and you picked that up. But most people, we don't listen like this. Okay. Um, and so there's something that you have to actually intentionally do. And that involves few elements. Number one is presence, right? If you're a good listener, you have to be fully present when you're listening. That's why you find, Amr ibn As, radiallahu anh, when he was so um, confident when he asked, Ya Rasulullah, who is the most beloved person to you? He was confident that it's going to be him, right? Then he said, his wife, Aisha, and she said, okay, I understand, maybe it's your wife, but who among the men? He thought, okay, it has to be me, right? Prophet definitely loves me the most. And he saw Salam, he said, Wabuha, and her father, right? And then he realized, oh, okay, subhanallah. But why is it that this person felt that Rasulullah loves me the most, right? Because the way Rasulullah made this person feel. That is part of good listening. That when you're listening to someone is as if they are the most important person in your life at that moment. Right? That is the level of attention you have to give people when you listen to them. Rasulullah will never talk to someone without facing them. Like you literally he would turn his whole body physically. And that is the sunnah of Rasulullah. He would turn around completely if he's listening to you. And then there's a reflecting. Reflecting means this is really the hallmark of active listening, right? That when you're listening, you have to reflect, not reflect on what they're saying, but let them hear what you heard, right? Um, and so they have found studies on different waiters and waitresses, and they found that if the waitress your order back to you, right? You actually have they actually have they actually receive 70% larger tip. Like they did a study where they had a waiter not repeat back on what the order was versus repeat back, and they found that the customers give more tips because people want to be heard. You want to know. It's not just like, okay, I hear you. Okay, I think I understand. You don't want to say that. You don't want to say I understand. Okay, I heard you. No, no. What did you hear? Right? You want to let them know you hear. Oftentimes you'll find people repeating themselves. If you have people in your life that repeats a lot, try just reflecting back what you heard. And there's two type of reflection, by the way. There is a reflection of content, and there's a reflection of feelings. So I could reflect back what I'm hearing, like okay, it sounds like you to me that you've been really struggling with your schedule. You had some things planned and you weren't able to get to it. This week was very rough for you at work. These are all content, right? That's one type of reflection. You want to do that, but you also want to reflect the feeling. And seems like to me that you feel a bit frustrated, right? Like you want to reflect what is the feeling that you're hearing, not just the content. Okay. um so you want to reflect, you want to mirror, and this is a bit advanced. There's ways of mirroring your body and your voice. This is actually something that they teach customer service agents, for example. And this makes sense, right? Like if you're standing and I'm sitting down, we're not as sync, right? Or if you're a very fast speaker and I'm speaking super slow, we're not going to be in sync, right? And so matching tonality, m- matching speed, matching vocabulary. And Rasulullah, you see in the seerah that he would meet people where they're at. right? He would give advice that are very customized, right? And so even the language you speak, right, the words that you use, um, are quite critical, and even physically, by the way. So I'm in a Zoom meeting with you, and you're having a coffee, right? Studies have shown by the very virtue of me just lifting my hand slightly, say you're drinking coffee and I'm lifting my hand slightly, it's a big difference between you drinking coffee and I'm like this talking to you on Zoom on camera, right? My hands folded. We're not at sync. So even physically, there's mirroring, and that's why very fascinating to me in the hadith of Jibril, very famous hadith. When Archangel Gabriel comes to Rasulullah in the form of a man, jalas ila Nabi sallam, فَأَسْنَى رُكْبَتَيْ إِلَى رُكْبَتَيْ, that he came and he sat and knee to knee, right? And subhanAllah, it was the tradition of the Arabs, but there's that respect and that synchrony when you're sitting down. That's a great communication posture, right? Um, and it's about clarification, right? When someone says something, especially that's a little bit off, complaining, or they are accusing of something. When people accuse you of something, instead of pushing back, responding back, you want to ask for clarification. You want to say, okay, this is what I'm hearing. Whether you disagree or agree, don't worry about that. I said, this is what I'm hearing. Can you just walk me through? Like, I'm trying to understand, how you arrived at that conclusion, like, and not in a mockery way, but just help me understand, sort of, what made you think that? I think that the event was terrible. Okay, Jazakallah khair for sharing that. Can you tell me, like, what about the event that you felt, didn't go as well, and really become, the more people accuse you, the more people push on you, the more inquisitive a researcher you become. So wow, that's very interesting. Why would when someone gets upset at you, you don't want to say, like, how dare them get upset at me? I work so hard, I do so much. No, you become a researcher. You say, why would a reasonable, good human being be upset? Right? Maybe there's something in there. That's sort of the mindset you have to have, right? Um, and then summarization. Once you've heard something, you have to summarize this as part of also reflecting. Okay, so that is about um, using communication, in having and building trust, and that's really foundation to that, is that very, very key skill of active listening. Okay, um, I am going to go through the rest of the five elements of the high performing team, inshallah. So there's, as I said, I'll cover active listening, and I'll cover a bit about conflict negotiation, and so at this point, love to see if there's anyone has any questions or any comments, anything that resonated with you. So, okay, you know what? Yeah, that is really something makes ton of sense. Feel free to put in the chat. Any questions, any comments, any reflection? Okay. Just making sure I don't have any messages. Okay. Um, okay, we have a question here. Is there any advice on getting this communication culture across departments and other teams? Very, very, very good question. So, I'm gonna assume that, and feel free to correct me in the chat. I'm gonna assume that, um, you know, you you are responsible for, obviously, for your team, or maybe you're responsible for the broader organization, and you're trying to say, okay, how do I have this culture across all the team? And really, team culture, I will tell you, number one, the really the number one way to do this, it starts with you as a leader, and then the people who are directly managing the people. So there's something that you have to demonstrate with your own behavior, and then you have to work with the managers and directors. Yeah, any points on team building among managers, directors? Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. So when it comes to team building among manager and director, my quick recommendation to you all is definitely try to have team offsites, which is like dedicated time. Um, and as I was mentioning in the last question, last answer to the last question, it's really about it's less about just some icebreakers, but more about orchestration. And part of the orchestration is a few things, practical things you could think about. One of the things I love that helps have vulnerability in a team is having folks do assessment on their personality. So whether everyone takes a disc profile, or they do Enneagram, or they do 16 personality, have everyone in all the manager directors take that assessment and then come together and share that with each other. Okay. That really forces into people to open up and share. So definitely orchestrate, dedicate time for those meaningful team discussions, meaningful personal discussions. Number two is spend time outside the team setting. So it's not just about setting up some offsite, which is important. I mentioned that to you, but also about time outside. That might be an activity, and inshallah within of course their brothers and sisters, and of course there are haya and kind of within the sharia, inshallah, and the culture that you have for your team. Some teams are more comfortable and engaging. Doing some outside activities that's quite helpful. Three, I would say, is having discussions and ice building that is icebreakers that are completely just from a different topic. So watch something together, discuss something together, right? And make sure everyone participates, and that's part of the job that you have to do when you facilitate these. Have people participate. Number four is creating subgroups. So if you have a lot of managers and directors, it's about creating smaller groups. So like in a Zoom, you have breakout rooms, for example, right? And that's a very, very crucial way to do that, and in real life as well, not just on Zoom, but in real life. How do you create that small unit? And lastly, it also begins by you as a leader who is orchestrating this, and you having those one-on-ones with everyone, having the one-on-one, showing that you're open to being vulnerable, and so forth. And feel what's also sometimes helpful as well when it comes to team building among managers, directors, board members, is to bring on someone from outside. Sometimes a third party is able to also help facilitate, and you can always have discussions about uh, you know uh, high performing culture. A team that can have a very good relationship with each other, but could be very not that productive, right? Ultimately, real bond is created when people come together and they struggle, and they actually deliver a very high impact outcome. So that's also very critical. I have those few points were helpful, inshallah. um Productive conflict. We have about 10 minutes, inshallah, to wrap this up. So the when it comes to productive conflict, it's very, very critical that as a team you encourage conflict. And if you are part of a team and you're not a team lead, sit with the conflict, right? Something comes up that's very difficult, you look at it as an opportunity. So it's teams that fear conflict, they are not high performing team, because what that tells me is that you don't have the right skill set to manage conflict. When a conflict comes up in a team, that's a great sign. That's a good sign that people care, sign that people have opinions, sign that people are engaged, right? But you don't want to go from conflict to it being something very unhealthy, right? um a total fight and so forth. Well, this is something that we get asked about quite a bit, and something that we at Oaktree, not only not nowadays, we also manage conflicts. Organizations that are having internal leadership fights, often we're brought in to intervene and so forth. And I'll talk a little about that. If you are someone that's trying to manage conflict between two team members or two of your leaders, what you can do, inshallah, as well. But what's very critical when it comes to conflict is that you have to surface disagreements early and respectfully, right? And you want to have that courage to bring it up, right? Normalize concern. And so these mindsets are very, very critical. First of all, you have to have the courage to bring up conflict, um, because people, instead of negotiating conflict, they either force each other or they ignore. They do side politics, and subhanallah, in our Muslim community, we have organizations that end up splitting up. Law enforcements are called after a board meeting, and things that happen that, subhanallah, this is not befitting of a Muslim adab and akhlaq, right? As partly because as lack of even skill of how to manage a conflict. And so you have to have the courage, first of all. I started my career as a psychotherapist, before I went into management consulting, and eventually in corporate, I do strategy work. But in my psychotherapy days, I used to do some premarital counseling as well. And one of the biggest things that I used to tell people is that you have to be able to bring up difficult conversations, and that, look, this is a person that you're gonna live with for the rest of your life. If you feel like you're not able to bring up everything that's in your mind, of course, respectfully, with wisdom, right time, right place, right tone, that you feel you can't bring it up, then how can you be in the most intimate relationship with this person, right? And so you have to have the courage to bring up difficult conversation, right? um but you don't want to avoid conflict, right? Ignore controversial topic, shut down back and forth discussion. Then you create a culture of people are failing to tap into opinions and perspective. Conflict means there are a lot of different perspective opinions. Good thing, right? If your team doesn't have a conflict, create some conflict. You need some motion. um and you have to have that courage to have that. And number two, you have to be just, right? If you are gonna be facilitating a conflict, you need to have that just. Of course, as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he told us, "Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu kunu qawamina bil qist," right? And be persistently stand firm in justice. But the amazing part is that walau ala anfusikum, like even if it's against yourself, like you messed up, right? um and so, subhanallah, it's really about, you need to be fair during a fight. And especially it's hard, in a Muslim organizations, and we have friends, family members that are part of our teams. And again, nepotism, favoritism plays a big part in our organizations, unfortunately. But you have to be able to be fair, right? Al mu'min mir'atu al mu'min. Believers are like mirrors. Subhanallah, you go to a mirror. Just because the mirror, is your best friend, doesn't make your pimple smaller, right? Or it doesn't like you, so it makes your tie look crooked. It doesn't do that. Mirror is very fair. It gives you exactly what it is. And also, some said that a believer behavior should be like that of a mirror. And the relationship between a believer should be that of mirror. Al mu'min mir'atu al mu'min. You're a believer to another believer. You're a mirror to another believer. And so you have to have that level of fairness, in the way you deal. And then you have to have the collaborative mindset, right? If you want to be, if you have to have the right mindset to be able to manage conflict, you have to have that collaborative mindset, which is, um, you always are trying to bring people together. Whether you're in a team or you're leading a team, you're constantly thinking about, how do I bring people together? Because fundamentally, it goes back to your worldview. The worldview that you and I have. Why are we involved in Muslim organization institutions? Why? Ultimately, we are trying to do khair and good, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave us that obligation, to be a Khalifa on this earth, to bring khair into this earth, right? And we are so focused on pleasing Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and that we want to go to Jannah, right? And so, if that's our paradigm, then I am constantly thinking not just about my organization, my team, and but I'm thinking, how do the ummah move forward? How do I bring the best people in the ummah, all the different talents we have in the ummah, let them work together, let them, because we know if there's jama'ah, if there's strength in that jama'ah, if people are collaborating, the ummah is progressing. If good Muslim people are working together more effectively, then more khair is happening. That should be your mindset. So you are constantly trying to, it doesn't matter what personal relationship you have, how you feel about the situation, you are always trying to bring people together, right? And that's what Rasulullah was. He Sallallahu always try to bring people together, and that has to be your attitude as a leader. You see a conflict between two members, you say, yeah, I don't really care as long as my work is getting done. No, 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 that's not the attitude. You want to bring people together. um, and once you do that, and I'm not going to cover the steps to how you manage a conflict, inshallah. That's a full workshop in and of itself, inshallah. But what I want to share with you is, that's, I think quite important, is that if you are someone as a leader, you're trying to help manage a conflict within your team, within your organization, you can get involved. And I think there's a culture of like, oh, it's not my business, I'm not gonna get involved. A good leader tries to facilitate. And part of that is you need to make sure, first of all, that you're a neutral party. You know yourself. If you have some favoritism with someone else, specifically, you don't want to get involved, right? Then you want to understand each party. Why are they in conflict, right? Let's hear them out, right? Find a common cause that they both care about, right? And then coach each party. So, I've done this work now several times, between an imam and an ED. I've done this with, two major leaders within an organization. And plenty of times in the corporate world as well. And I'll tell you that it's about really sitting down with each person at a time, listening to them. What is the nature of the conflict? What is it that they feel? And you find out there's some perceptions and presumptions and so on and so forth. Um, and then you find a common cause that they both care about. Then you coach each of them to be able to speak to each other. You have to sometimes the emotions are so high, they don't even want to speak to each other. So you want to facilitate that conversation with each other, as long as you are a neutral party. And then you want to have them make some sort of a public commitment to working together, right? Let them be on a project together. Assign them something specific. I had a case where I had two people that two top leaders of an organization. They were in a conflict, and I listened to both of them, coached them to learn to talk to each other, because sometimes emotions rile up. So you coach them to have better conversation, and then had their leader assign them a task, I mean, one project that they will have to work together to do. Right, so they make that public commitment, and then address any underlying issue sometimes it's about their job role and scope, lack of clarity in the job description. Maybe the organization is set up in a bit toxic way, that they're competing in an unhealthy way. So those are things that you want to kind of do. Okay. As we wrap up here, I want to quickly just talk about the other three. I want to give you sort of preview of the other three. It's not as critical, because I wanted to cover active listening and a bit about conflict negotiation. But a high performing team where communication becomes important as well is about commitment. So you want to clarify and communicate your own responsibility. So you're part of a team, or you are leading a team. You want to verbalize, okay, I'm going to make sure I understand my roles and responsibility, right? You want to ask in a meeting, who's owning this, right? What am I expecting from you? Like, you just don't assume things. You want to over communicate. Okay. Accountability, same thing. You want to check in on the progress. It's you want to ask. It's not just assume, not just after the fact. It's not about performance review at the end of the year. It's immediate feedback, and even ask. One of the best way to give a feedback is to ask, hey, even before a issue comes up, is what type of feedback do you like? What works best for you? Like, if something comes up, what's the best way for me to address it with you? That pre-conversation will save you a lot of headache. Even that itself will actually help you have better conversation with your staff, with your volunteer. And lastly, always, communicate the higher goal, the objective. Don't assume people know. You want to communicate your vision constantly, and that's part of good leadership. With that, inshallah, I hope this was helpful, practical for you. Um, the recording will be available, inshallah. I know the team will put it up, and inshallah, when we do put up the the session, inshallah, we can include the resource as well, inshallah.